Today is Friday the 13th, a day steeped in superstition and mystery, long considered unlucky in Western culture. But does Friday the 13th deserve its reputation? Do we have any cause to be concerned today? That's me touching wood, just in case. But joining us now is the Clare-based storyteller and filmmaker Tommy Lanigan, also known as Balor Otherworld, who will delve into the myths, legends and fascinating stories behind our fears of the number 13 and unlucky days. And we're glad that nothing unlucky befell in between his journey to Clare FM and arriving here. Good morning, Tommy.
Good morning.
Thanks very much for being with us. I mentioned this is the Friday the 13th, and we're going to have two of them this year, every 11 years. So the last time it was 2015, and then I think it's 2037 that we will have two, or is it three Friday the 13th?
I think it's three.
It's three, is it? Okay. And this is one of those years that we have a number of them, so we have to be extra careful. But I mentioned it's been a feature of Western culture. So where do the origins of Friday the 13th and it being superstitious or unlucky stem from?
Well, it's very mysterious because we still don't know exactly where it came from. There's a few theories. One was that 1307 King Philip IV of France had the Knights Templar arrested on Friday the 13th. There's another one that it was, this is the one probably most people would know, that there was 13 people at the Last Supper, and Judas, being the 13th member, cursed the number when he betrayed Jesus. And there's a link to Norse mythology that there was a dinner of the gods. 12 gods were invited. Loki wasn't invited, so he showed up and decided to play a trick where he got Hodor, the god of darkness and winter, to shoot a mistletoe arrow at Baldur, who's the god of light, summer or spring, and that killed Baldur, so it plunged the world into more darkness than it already had.
My God. So the moral of the story is either invite Loki to a party or just ensure that word doesn't get out to him that he's not invited.
Yeah. Well, it's a very Western thing anyway. It seems to be maybe a combination of the Norse myth and Christian superstitions. It didn't really have a place in Ireland, in, we'll say, a Celtic culture. But different countries see it in different ways. Like you look at Hispanic cultures where they would say it's Tuesday the 13th, which is the unlucky one. They don't consider Friday the 13th dangerous at all. Okay, well maybe we're benefiting more from that, because at least for Friday the 13th, if something bad befalls you, you've the weekend to recover. If it happens to you on a Tuesday, you still have 3 days of work to get through. That's it. It might have been to do with going out to the pub at the end of the week.
But perhaps so. Okay, so a couple of suggestions there as to where this might all stem from, but no definitive answer. But you've touched on the approach different cultures or differing countries maybe treat it in different ways. The Tuesday the 13th in Spain, but in Latin cultures. But what about the number itself? We consider the number 13 unlucky. You know, even in some hotels, the lift will go from the 12th floor to the 14th floor. There is no 13th floor. But is 13 an unlucky number in most countries, or do maybe some countries another number's unlucky?
Again, it's kind of the American influence. In the late 19th century, early 20th century, there was a few books written which emphasised it. So there was some sort of cultural swing that direction, which kind of just gained momentum. In China, I believe the number 4 is considered unlucky. In Italy, it's 17. But Italy is changing over time because, I suppose, of the popularity of Friday the 13th. Younger people in Italy would associate 13 as unlucky, whereas you'd go back hundreds of years and they would have said it was 17.
Isn't that interesting that a number that some people go, oh my God, that's so unlucky, just over the passing of time that phases out and suddenly people have no awareness of it and it changes to a completely different number that before wasn't unlucky but now is.
Yeah. I think sometimes as well there was calendars in the past some societies had which were 13 months as opposed to 12. So some people would have considered it a lucky number.
Do you think we do actually have a 13-month calendar? It's just January is double.
It feels like it.
It feels like it. It does look. We got through it anyway. Yeah. Okay, so that's interesting. Different numbers, 4, be it 4, 17. What about us here? That we very much, not everyone, but the Friday the 13th is something that we're aware of. We know from yourself and from having Eddie Lennon on the show, there's so much rich mythology and folklore, and the history and mythology and folklore going back centuries in this country. I'm sure superstitions are a big part of that as well. So what are some of the myths or the stories or the legends or folklore around Irish superstitions, and what are they, Tommy?
Well, a lot of them would be based on the fairies. Respect for the fairy tree, the fairy fort. We've seen it with examples like when up in Belfast they built the factory in the 70s for DeLorean, that they destroyed a fairy tree to do it, and the Irish crew wouldn't touch it, so they got in crew from abroad in the evening who damaged it, and of course the company had no fortune ever, really.
That was it, because all of us who grew up at Back to the Future, who knew DeLorean went out of business, or the General Motors, looked at that and went, but that's such a cool car, and once it hits 88 miles an hour it can go into the future or Back to the Future. Why would that not be a success?
He messed with the fairies.
He messed with the fairies. All right, okay. What are some other Irish superstitions? I did not think DeLoreans would feature as part of this.
Well, there's other ones like there's one about robins, that if you kill a robin, that you're cursed for bad luck, or that in some cases they believe that there'll be a death in your family as a result of killing a robin. So it gets very morbid. There's a lot of warnings, in Irish superstition. There was another one with building houses long ago. They said that if you didn't want to build on a fairy path, between two important points, so whatever field you decided to build in, you would lay down sometimes it would be hawthorn branches, it'd be branches anyway, to mark the boundary of your walls for the house, and you make sure there's no animals able to access it. Then you'd go home, you'd check it after say the next morning, and if the sticks were all left in the same place, that was a sign that it was safe to build, that you weren't disturbing the fairies. But if things were moved about, you'd say, okay, the fairies are coming through this way, so we better leave it alone.
Okay, so there's loads in that. For yourself and your walking tours and everything that you do, how much does talking about Friday the 13th or superstitions feature, or is it predominantly, naturally enough, if you're working today, that's where you'll end up talking about it more than at any other time of the year? Yeah. Generally, there's something every time, every season or every holiday or every day. There's always something to mention about that specific time of year. So I just go with what's relevant for each day. We have a group. Okay. Before I let you go, you have a Friday the 13th related story for us. Any ideas as to what it's about, or do you want to preface it with anything, or just launch straight into it? Well, it's based on my own time growing up in Ennis. Okay. I can tell you afterwards a little bit more about it. Maybe it'll make more sense once you've heard the story. Okay, yeah. Some context will be appreciated. Okay, before you read it, what's the story called? I've for now just called it Balor's Irish Friday the 13th. There we go. You thought long and hard about that one. We're working. It's a work. We're workshopping here. Yeah, okay, exactly. Tommy, tell us the story. So I grew up in Kevin Barry Avenue in Ennis. Some people will know that that's very, very close to Curravon Graveyard, which in fact my back garden backed onto. A lot of people were buried there. In fact, you could see the corners of coffins with bones clawing their way out of the earth when we were younger. Friends and family were often afraid or cautious when they realised we had headstones rising behind the house. And my bedroom window actually looked out onto those headstones, so you can imagine sleepovers were often peeking through the curtains. More than a few people had their parents called to pick them up in the middle of the night. Not my fault. But I suppose when you live with the dead, or when you live with that proximity to it, you'd think nothing of it. But other people, you'd kind of notice it when other people were in the area. So when I was a child, one Friday the 13th, I found one of our cats was playing in the corner of the garden with something, and thinking the cat had been fishing in the neighbour's pond again, I ran over to see the damage, and as I got up to the cat, Misty, she hopped back, and I could see that it was a dead robin. So I heard our neighbour next door working, Michael, and I called over the hedge asking him for a shovel. So he went inside to get one. When he came back, he threw over with it a bag of buttons, chocolate buttons for me, and which he was wont to do when he was a neighbour. He was a great neighbour.
But I had the items and I was working away, and then Michael called, by the way, what type of bird is it? Because I'd only said bird.
Yeah.
When I said robin, he paused and there was an odd silence. So I had to wait a little while, and he called back eventually saying, listen, there's a bit of Irish folklore that whoever kills a robin is marked for death. And I thought, oh, that's kind of freaky, but you know, I'm sure it's fine. It's a cat, it's a black cat, so maybe she cancels out the bad luck.
Tommy thought to himself, what's the worst that could happen, tempting fate?
That's it. So went to bed later that night, and thought nothing of it. But I woke up in the middle of the night hearing screaming, which I figured was the cats, which they could do sometimes. But the next morning, when there was a knock on our door. Now our front door, we had number 12 on it, and Michael next door was actually, believe it or not, number 13. And when we opened the door, it was actually Michael, and Misty was dead in his arms. She'd been killed that night.
Jesus. Rather unsettling. So you said you promised you'd give us some context. So the context, please.
So don't believe everything a storyteller tells you. That like I've embellished heavily. Misty did die, but she was hit by a car. There was no. She
so the
probably
car was a car of 131 or something like that in the red.
It might have been. We never caught them. She did kill robins, but she didn't die on the day she killed a robin. And we did have a neighbour, Michael, who lived next door, number 13. We are number 12, but you know, sometimes you have to work with stories to make them a little bit more compelling. There isn't a specific Irish story like linked to the number 13, and statistically, for anyone nervous today, it's actually the safest day of the year because people are so extra cautious.
So Friday the 13th deserves its superstitious reputation in terms of stories and all the hoo-ha around it, but actually, because we're also aware of that, it's the safest day of the year.
Yeah.
I get that there's logic in that. Thanks for the story, Tommy. Brilliant story. And what I love is that it's based on true events. You took the skeletal structure of true events and put a lot of meat on it. That's for sure. But we thank you so much for reading it for us and bringing it to us and talking to us about the origins of Friday the 13th and the various superstitions, Irish related superstitions and so on. I would wish you good luck in your journey home, but it's one of the safest days of the year, so nothing bad is going to happen to you. Famous last words. Tommy Lanigan, aka Balor Otherworld. Tommy, thank you very much for being with us.